You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST. Grant McAuley, Jake Mastroianni with you after the Braves salvaged the finale of their 3-game series in Seattle. Finally, finding some runs, a crooked number put on the board as the Braves pick up that 5-2 victory. Of course, the Braves POSTCAST is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got a lot to get into as we recap what was the best of the 3 days that Atlanta spent in Seattle with a couple of frustrating losses before this win. And the road trip continues out west, so the Braves have a lot ahead of them and a lot for us to talk about on this edition of the POSTCAST as we preview that trip to see the Los Angeles Dodgers next. So I guess I say all that to say it's not going to get any easier. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta right here on YouTube. Subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Spring training is over. Baseball season officially underway. We got a month under our belt. It is now the month of May. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. First deposit match of up to $100 coming your way. Jake, as we watch this series in Seattle, a lot of frustrations at the plate, but you got to feel great about the way the Braves were pitching. The fact was, the Mariners were every bit as good, if not a little bit better, on the mound those first couple of games, and Atlanta able to find a way in the finale.
Yeah, and that's the important part there. Look, you're not going to win every series. The Braves were going to certainly try to do that, but you got to find ways not to get swept. And after a couple of frustrating games, the Braves did that on Wednesday. Were able to salvage one and got the off day, try to regroup before they take on the Dodgers.
Yeah, and reach the 20-win plateau as well as we turn that calendar here into the month of May. Let's talk a little bit about this game as the Braves were able to pick up that 5-2 victory over the Seattle Mariners. Offense, I felt like opportunistic, and that's the first time this series I feel like I've been able to say that in this 5-2 win over Seattle. The Braves scored early. They added on. They were able to hold serve and keep the Mariners from any kind of rally, any kind of craziness like we saw in the opener. I thought just overall, this was just a nice, well-rounded win, and we'll get into how exactly it happened offensively in a moment, but just everything seemed to click again for the Braves.
It did. They came up, with some big at-bats. They obviously got some help from the Mariners in this one, but to your point, they took advantage of that. They've had help in these other games and just haven't been able to come up with the big hits or the good at-bat to put the ball in play to get that extra run that they needed. A couple of one-run losses that they had, and in this one they did really in the one inning where they scored 4 runs, but also the bases loaded walk early on to kind of get things started where Emerson Hancock was struggling with command. Marcell Ozuna works a good at bat and has that walk to get the first run on the board. So got a lot of help from the Mariners in this one, but they also took that help, took advantage of that, and were able to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, you'll take the charity. If you're giving them out, the Braves will certainly take them as far as bases loaded walks are concerned. You don't want to be on the giving side of that. But when you're an offense that's struggling, Jake, I feel like any little thing that starts to go your way, maybe that just starts to kind of change the energy, the feel, the flow of things going on in that dugout because, hey, you just got one for free. Now are you able to go out there and start tacking on? And the Braves were certainly able to do that in this one.
They were. And as you said, the way the offense is struggling, and you knew going out west and the offense had been struggling in the week prior, going out there, and then you're facing a Mariners staff and Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo who have really good stuff, and Emerson Hancock had 3 straight quality starts coming into this one. You knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge for this offense, as good as they are, as talented as they are, just not clicking right now. So you're looking for any little thing to get them going at the moment. And so this is certainly one of those games where you saw some things go their way, where, even here recently, they haven't been swinging the bat particularly well. The at-bats haven't been great altogether, but they have made some really good contact and just haven't gotten the results from them, Olsen and Riley in particular. So, you get a little dribbler, you get a ball that drops in, you're going to take that and certainly run with it. And like you said, hopefully that just kind of gives them some good vibes, some good feelings going forward to get this offense going, because we know it's going to happen. It will happen at some point, but sooner rather than later would certainly help out the Twitter comments.
Yeah, it definitely would. The discourse online has been doom and gloom, wait and see, and not really anything of the positive variety because, look, nobody's telling you it's fun to lose games the way that the Braves lost them, especially, kind of having your heart ripped out of your chest in the opener where you felt like, hey, we're going to see a no-hitter for the first time in 30 years for the Braves, or are we going to lose on a walk-off? And, the pendulum swing of emotion on that night in particular, I think might have typified where the frustrations were really just emanating from when it came to this Seattle game. The second one, it just seemed like the offense, again, couldn't get on track. And it's felt like that for about a week or 10 days now. Some good games against the Marlins, but clearly those back and forth contests against the Guardians, an opportunity for a sweep that kind of slipped through their fingers. And the Guardians helped them out a little bit in the finale of that one. And you knew that kind of thing may not continue to go your way. And the Mariners, with their great pitching, as you pointed out, were able to really neutralize the Braves offense over the first couple of games to take that series victory. Now, one thing we need to talk about, and we'll get into the offense a little bit more later as we go along, but how about Chris Sale? He has been everything that the Braves could have asked for thus far. Another great start for Chris Sale against Seattle in this one, a season-high 9 strikeouts and no walks across his 5 innings. And, Chris Sale just continues to deliver, Jake, and he has been exactly what the Braves were hoping for when they pulled off that trade.
I think he's been better than what the Braves were hoping for. I mean, he has been every bit of fantastic. 3.44 ERA, 0.95 whip at the moment. That strikeout rate is getting closer up to 30%. The walk rate is very good as well. No walks in this one. I know me and you talked about it kind of previewing this series with the Mariners lineup who strikes out a lot. It was a chance for Chris Sale to kind of have that big strikeout game. He did it with 9 of them in just 5 innings. So he has been absolutely incredible. And again, we've discussed it even in some of the outings where he's given up, some runs. It felt like he pitched better than the final line indicated. And now we're starting to see him pitch, the way that he's pitching, matching the results as well. So that is great to see. He has been that, top of the rotation arm. I'm not sitting here telling you he's the Cy Young candidate that he was back in the day, but he still looks really, really good. And he can go through a lineup. He can get those swings and misses, 21 whiffs on Wednesday afternoon against that Mariners lineup. Unfortunately, when you strike out a lot of batters, you have to throw a lot of pitches to do so. And they fouled off 20 pitches. So it kind of pushed that pitch count up, and he was only able to get through 5 innings, but still just another really good start. And as you said, he has been everything the Braves could hope for and maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. And when you look at what Chris Sale has done thus far, I mean, I know only 5 innings on Wednesday, but 5 very good innings. And as you mentioned, a lot of strikeouts. Pitch count did get elevated up to 100. I don't think you wanted to tempt fate and send him back out there for a 6th inning of work, particularly when you have a bullpen that's capable of doing some pretty good things behind him. So they were able to do that today. Dylan Lee did give up a run, but otherwise, the final 4 innings, the Mariners only able to tally that 1 against the Atlanta bullpen, which has been a strength over the course of this year. And as we talked about over the course of the last week, when the starting rotation is able to consistently deliver quality starts, pitch into the 6th, the 7th inning and beyond, your bullpen doesn't have to work quite as much. And that, I think, has really worked in the Braves' favor when they have had to call upon different arms. Some may not be available every single day or 3 in a row or 3 out of 4, whatever, what have you. And I know that was a big conversation piece when A.J. Minter was brought in to close that opening game. But overall, I think from a bullpen usage standpoint and a pure bulk of innings, Jake, this Braves bullpen is in a very nice spot as the second fewest innings thrown of any relief corps in baseball.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about, especially after the first few weeks of the season where starting pitchers for the Braves weren't going very deep into the game, and you were having to use that bullpen a lot. And then we saw them go deeper in the game. You saw the bullpen get a rest. But that Cleveland series really did a number, even with starters going deep into that one, just because of the extra inning games, the closeness of those games. You really had to use them a lot. And so going into this series, Snicker kind of wanted to give some of them a rest if he could. Led to maybe a loss on Monday. Look, Minter's been great all year. I got confidence in him getting that. Unfortunately, just wasn't his night, but Iglesias not available, and he was pushed into that role. Well, I want to give a shout out to Jesse Chavez, though, on Tuesday's game, because I mentioned this on the Locked On Braves podcast after that game. If the Braves got into a situation on Wednesday where maybe their starter didn't go as long, which is what happened, not because of ineffectiveness, but just because of pitch count, Chris Sale only went 5 innings, and because Jesse Chavez pitched 2 innings, and of a game they were losing on Tuesday, you had more bullpen arms ready to go to. A Dylan Lee, who was able to cover an inning and 2/3. So I want to give a shout out to Jesse Chavez, who hadn't pitched in almost 2 weeks and came in and pitched 2 scoreless innings. But this bullpen, as you mentioned, it's been really, really good for this Braves team. And now with the starting pitching kind of coming along as well, traditionally, or here a lot recently, rather, going deeper into games, 6, 7 innings. I know this was only the 5-inning variety of Chris Sale, but he's somebody who'd gone 7 in his last 2 outings, really trying to keep this bullpen fresh, and they've been great all year long.
Yeah, actually 3 straight outings of 7 innings pitched for Chris Sale. And the Jesse Chavez thing, I know a lot of folks were starting to wonder, are we going to see this guy pitch again? Is something going on there? I think that there had been plans on different days where he would have worked, and then the game situation didn't necessarily dictate that he would be the guy that come in on those days. And now when you're the reliever who's kind of, as you mentioned, that like emergency policy, just in case you need some innings covered, you don't necessarily want to use them just to use them. And I think that's kind of where Jesse Chavez got caught between a rock and a hard place. And that bullpen door, that at least that bullpen phone wasn't ringing and his name being called. So as you look at what the Braves were able to do in this finale with their 5-2 win, a lot of good things. That offense we're going to talk about a little bit more later. 2 hits for Ronald Acuna Jr., 2 hits for Austin Riley, Matt Olson with a hit and a walk. All of those men drove in runs, and 3 of the 5 runs that were scored on the day, including 2 by Ronald Acuna Jr., came from that trio that we are going to continue to talk about as we continue on this edition of the Braves Postcast. We'll get into a little bit more of what went right for Chris Sale, some more about the offense, and some good signs that we saw on Wednesday. And, of course, as we get down the line, we'll get you ready for that trip out to Los Angeles where the Braves and Dodgers will meet for the first time this year. That's all coming your way on the Braves Postcast. Step up to the plate this Mother's Day as DoorDash has a deal you don't want to miss. Right now, get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend at least $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB and start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from brands she loves delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB on the DoorDash app. Get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order with DoorDash. Well, Jake, it was a very good day for the Braves as they were able to avoid a sweep, a very good day on the mound for Chris Sale, and a very good day for some hitters who were looking for a very good day. And I'm now going to retire that phrase probably for the rest of the show. Let's go through the line score and the box score of this one for the Braves. Just 6 hits, but they made them count. They scored 5 times. The Mariners, meanwhile, 2 runs, 10 hits, made a couple of errors. Those proved costly as well. The Braves left 7 men on base. The Mariners, meanwhile, stranded 11. The winning pitcher, Chris Sale, he is now 4-1. Emerson Hancock takes the loss. He drops to 3-3. And Raisel Iglesias with his 8th save of the season. Those the particulars on this line score. And let's talk a little bit about the Braves offense. Then we'll bring it back to Chris Sale, maybe talk a little bit more about his performance. But, you know, I know that the heights that the Braves reached in 2023, in particular for Ronald Acuna Jr., we'll start with him because I still think he may be the best player in baseball. And I don't need to spend the rest of our show arguing the reasons why. The talent is there. The results have not been. But Jake, as he starts to hit the ball harder, starts to find his way on base a little bit more. A year ago, it seemed like he was just able to adjust that launch angle, and all of a sudden, the home run started flying. The extra base hits started to pile up. Hopefully, that's something that's in his future here in the month of May, so he looks a little bit more like Ronald Acuna Jr. and not a guy who's batting .250 with an OPS right around 700 with a month already in the books this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to look at a month into the season and Ronald Acuna Jr. with an OPS not just under 800, but under 700. I mean, you'd have told me he had a OPS a little under, 750, 800. I'd have said, okay, he's off to a little bit of slow start, but it's under 700. And I'm not, when I say the word concerning, people were thinking I want to trade Ronald Acuna Jr. I'm not concerned about him long-term, but we are looking at a month-long, slump, if you want to call it that, for Ronald Acuna Jr. here. And yeah, he had the 2 hits on Wednesday. I want to get excited about that, but 3 more strikeouts as well. He has struck out 3 times in 3 of the last 4 games. He's done it 4 times this year. And Grant, I didn't look it up real quick. I can't imagine he did that too many times last year. And that's the one thing. Yeah. And so he's already done it more times this year. And so that's the thing with Ronald that it just worries me a little bit. And he's going to figure it out. I know he will. And look, I'm not a hitting coach, but I know he knows what he needs to fix and work on. And it is obviously a lot of the 4-seam fastballs. We've talked about that on here that are just, pitchers aren't really scared of it right now. You saw Emerson Hancock in this first at bat, 3 straight 94-mile-per-hour fastballs, middle up, and he's just not able to get on time with them. But the strikeouts, that was the thing we raved about last year, is how he cut down that strikeout rate, and now it's more in the 23-25% range. So once he starts to figure that out, when he puts the ball in play, he's hitting it hard. Had a hard hit ball today. The other one he had was 90.4, and that was encouraging because it was a fastball in that's really been beating him, and he was able to get to that and pull it through the hole for a hit there. So there were some encouraging signs on some of the contact that he made today, but still 3 more strikeouts. That's something he has to figure out because it's what made him so special last year, just cutting down that strikeout rate.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that strikeout rate was going to be sustainable. It would be
Right.
wonderful if it was the switch that he flipped and that's who he was, but it would also be acceptable even if it crept up, 5, maybe even 6%.
Mhm.
Once you start to get over a 20% or 25% strikeout rate, then obviously it's a bigger part of your game than Ronald Acuna Jr. or most players want it to be, even if it's acceptable, depending on the output and the production that hitters are able to give you in today's game. That's just kind of a discussion point that I think we've all just accepted as fact at this point. There are more strikeouts in the game that happens. It doesn't mean that it can keep somebody from being productive, but you're right. And really, in all the conversations that you had around Ronald Acuna Jr. last year, 40, 70, nearly 150 runs scored, 200 hits, but 400 on base percentage, doing all the things that he did, it was the strikeout rate being cut down that the longer the season went on and it stayed so remarkably low, it just became an incredible facet of maybe who Ronald Acuna Jr. is capable of being, but everybody's going to go through some highs and some lows, and it would appear with the swing and miss right now that Ronald, as you pointed out, is not quite locked in. He's not quite, there where he needs to be on time, whatever the case is. You don't like seeing him get beat to the spot by 94-mile-an-hour fastballs, regardless of where that spot is, but especially when they're in the strike zone. And I don't want to catch flack for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've also seen Ronald Acuna Jr. be the recipient of some not so great called strikes that I think have changed some at bats and, in fact, ended some at bats in the past week that just add to the frustration of a piling or a mounting number of strikeouts as well. So just want to throw that in there for good measure. You can leave all the comments down below. I'll probably read them. I may not respond to them. A guy who responded, though, the way that you needed him to with a little bit more batted ball luck today. How about Austin Riley? 2-run triple among his 2 hits. Jake, he's been absolutely scalding the ball over the past week or so. A lot of fly balls that just kind of ran out of gas right at the wall. I think that we're finally starting to see maybe a little bit of a course correction in the batted ball luck for Austin Riley. And maybe that'll rub off on Matt Olson as well, because he had a hit and a run knocked in today. And he's been hitting the ball hard this season, not necessarily finding the most luck.
Yeah, Matt Olson in particular, when he has hit the ball, he has hit it extremely hard, and he is just having terrible luck at the moment. The strikeouts, again, are the big concern for him, just like Acuna. But Riley is somebody who we saw over the weekend, especially had the walk-off hit on Sunday and had some hard hit balls in that game, one that I thought should have gotten out, but that's another conversation. But he's still making really good contact. Look, Braves fans have to remember, Bryce Miller is possibly having a breakout season. Luis Castillo is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
Yeah.
The best hitters in the world are going to struggle going up against those guys. And the Mariners have one of the best bullpens in baseball and some good guys back there. But still, Austin Riley has put together some good swings, some encouraging signs from him. Out of the 3 we talk about, Acuna, Riley, and Olson, I think Riley's at-bats here lately have been the most encouraging. He had 3 hard hit balls on Wednesday. Matt Olson had 2. Everybody in the lineup had 1 except for Ozuna, who walked twice. So that's more typical of this Braves lineup to see hard hit balls up and down. So the results are going to come. We know that. But Riley, like you said, looked like he's been a little bit more like himself here at the plate here lately. Still chasing that slider down and away a little too much, which I know he had struggles with early in his career. But for the most part, his at-bats are starting to look much better.
Yeah, and you just want to start seeing those signs that maybe it's just all starting to come together for him. And perhaps, and I hate to keep saying this because the weather should heat up soon, but that shouldn't be the only thing that determines when a ball is going to leave the ballpark. And we'll just have that discussion offline here. The Braves run scoring on this day, top of the 3rd inning, bases loaded walk from Marcell Ozuna got it started. Ronald Acuna Jr., the run scoring single in the 4th. They got things going in a 4-run 4th inning. 2-run triple for Austin Riley followed, and Matt Olson with an RBI single to cap that. Runs in the 5th and 7th innings for Seattle, but that was all they could get. Tried to get a little something going in the 9th inning, but Raisel Iglesias wasn't having it. But you had to feel pretty good about seeing that crooked number on the board for the Braves, considering how tough runs were to come by over the first 2 games in this series, and honestly stretching back over the weekend against the Guardians. And Jake, just kind of a bigger point, I guess, in all the things that we've just discussed, to be talking about Ronald Acuna Jr. not quite being the guy that you may have expected him to be, or not being that guy at all based on the numbers. Only 1 home run to this point. The struggles of Riley, the even more struggles of Matt Olson. To be looking at a 20-9 record, considering that they've played, as I pointed out, I believe on the last show, all 4 playoff teams from a year ago, and they're in a run of playing 3 consecutive first-place teams. The Braves are more than treading water. They're doing what they need to do. So when we finally see that correction, if you will, with some of these big Braves hitters, there can be even bigger and better things for a club that's 20-9 through its first 29 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy to think about. They're 20-9, and the starting pitching in particular was rough to begin the season. You lose Spencer Strider. Max Fried has an ERA over 10 through his first 3 starts or whatever it was. And now the offense is as cold as we've ever seen it. They've hit 3 home runs in their last 9 games. And yet they're 20-9 in first place. And it's just it's amazing to see what this team's able to do. And we talk about it all the time. It's the depth of this roster and what they're able to get done 1 through 9 when the guys at the top haven't been getting it done. The guys at the bottom have stepped up. When the starting pitching was struggling early on, it was the offense that carried them. The bullpen's been solid pretty much throughout. And now the offense struggling, and you're seeing the starting pitching really pick them up. So that's what makes this Braves team so dangerous. Yes, we haven't even seen them clicking on all cylinders yet, and they're still 20-9 to begin the season.
Yeah, pretty incredible. I did not expect that home run stat you drop out there, a string for the 2024 Braves. It would look more like the 2016 Braves than the 2023 club, especially with all the names being pretty much the same. I did not have that on my list of predictions, my bingo card, whatever you want to call it. But that's kind of where they are. But they're still figuring out ways to win, despite the fact that they're not hitting home runs at the rate they were a year ago. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the win on Wednesday, and then we'll start looking ahead to the series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. It starts after Thursday's off day, so 3 games in Chavez Ravine beginning on Friday. That's coming your way next on the Braves Postcast. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch all your favorite sports and players. Baseball season is in full swing. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs, take your pick of more or less, then add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That is Locked On MLB in the Prize Picks app. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. And you can also play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb that leaderboard. Download Monopoly Go now, free in the App Store or Google Play. Well, Jake, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up for the Braves here as we put a bow on the series, the first leg of this 2-city road trip out west. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Seattle Mariners, but some signs of life from the offense on Wednesday. Maybe that'll bode well for their trip to renew hostilities, as the old phrase goes, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, a club that they know all too well, and a club that, just like the Braves, would like to figure out a way to find a rematch in October. We haven't seen one in a couple of years, because neither of these teams have been able to get out of the first round that they've played. That, of course, that chapter will be written much later in the year, but it should be interesting to get a look at a Dodgers team that now has Shohei Ohtani and a club that has no shortage of star power and firepower in its lineup for this Braves pitching staff, which has been throwing so well, to contend with as we head out to Los Angeles.
Yeah, it'll be a big task for this Braves pitching staff that, as we pointed out, has been much better here as of late. Now, you're not going to have a couple of your big horses in Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez going in the series that have been so great to start the year. But all these guys have really been much better the last week or two here. But the big key is the offense. And you hate to go into this series with the offense struggling the way that it has been. But they're going to break out at some point. Maybe Wednesday was signs of that, although I'm not quite convinced yet. But it's going to happen at some point. And what better time for it to happen than against the Los Angeles Dodgers? Many people would consider these two teams to be the 2 best in baseball, at least on paper. I think you throw the Orioles in there. The Phillies are a really good team as well. But certainly, coming into the year, the Braves and Dodgers had the 2 best odds to win the World Series. So it's going to be an entertaining matchup. Wish the Braves were going into it playing a little bit better. But again, we know they can snap out of this at any moment and get going and put it all together. So it should be a really fun series. Braves and the Dodgers. Place the Braves haven't had a ton of success in the past, but certainly 2 very good teams. Should be some entertaining games played.
Yeah, absolutely should be. And we'll see how the Braves lineup is able to respond. They did show some signs of life on Wednesday. Maybe that's a spark. Maybe that's the start of something. Maybe this rivalry will be a little bit more fuel thrown on that fire. Something I think obviously bodes well for the Braves lineup, and not a moment too soon for him to be back, is Ozzie Albies, who now has a 14-game hitting streak, as he picked up another base hit against the Mariners on Wednesday. That is a big get when you think about not only Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr. have been struggling a bit, but you also look down the lineup. Orlando Arcia has had a little bit tougher time getting base hits. Jared Kelenic as well. Michael Harris still swinging the bat pretty well, but it seems like some of the Braves that you used to have maybe enjoying some success back to back to back in the lineup, it's been a little bit harder to pull that thing off here of late in 2024. But getting Ozzie back in there, I think that's clearly something that the Braves wanted to have in order to be about as full strength as you can be to take on first place clubs the way that they have been with the Guardians, with the Mariners, and perhaps no bigger test this year than with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, great to have Ozzie coming back, as you mentioned, at the same time that RC has really cooled off. Even Ozuna, if you want to say cooled off from the hot start that he had to begin the year, he's still been very good, obviously. But it's great to have Ozzie back in there. You want to have as many weapons as possible, especially with the three guys at the top of the order that we've talked a lot about and the struggles that they've had. To be able to put Ozzie in there, and he just continued to produce and get hits and get on base. It's kind of what he does. So great to have him back at this time to try to get this offense going and spark them. And obviously, as we mentioned a lot on here, he's just that guy that kind of keeps everything cool in the clubhouse, in the dugout. No matter what's going on, no matter who's struggling, the ups and downs, Ozzie just always seems to, bring that fun energy to the team. And that's very important, especially going on a tough West Coast trip like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of everything. When the Braves are the best version of themselves, I like to say this, Ozzie Albies is typically right in the middle of whatever is going on. Dodgers are wrapping up their series with the Arizona Diamondbacks on Wednesday. LA is 19-13 on the year. Again, the Braves at 20-9 with the best record that you'll find in the National League. But the Dodgers clearly not that far behind. And hopefully for them, they're going to get a little bit more to full strength when they welcome Walker Buehler back in their rotation. Because as we talk about the different pieces that have been missing for the Braves, none bigger than Spencer Strider in rotation, the Dodgers have been dealing with their own set of pitching injuries, not to mention the fact that Shohei Ohtani is not set to throw a single pitch for them this year. So, Jake, they've kind of had to make this thing work a little bit. As we look at the probable starters for this series, Morton, Elder, and Fried lined up to throw for the Braves in games 1 through 3, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You've got Gavin Stone on the mound in the opener against Charlie Morton. For LA, Tyler Glasnow and Bryce Elder, and then James Paxton, the veteran lefty, against Max Fried, who I guess at this point can also be referred to as a veteran lefty. But, Tyler Glasnow, a big offseason get for Los Angeles, but outside of him, they've been trying to figure out quite a few things in their rotation as well.
Yeah, you look at these matchups, and I mentioned the Braves are going to be without Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez, two of their big arms, but kind of matches up well with what the Dodgers are going to be throwing out there. Gavin Stone, a young kid, has a good changeup and a mid-90s fastball, but hasn't quite had the results that he had hoped for to start this year. James Paxton just honestly hasn't been very good at all as the veteran lefty, as you mentioned. So you kind of circle that Saturday game, Bryce Elder versus Tyler Glasnow, going to be a tough one, but you feel like in those other two games, if Morton and Fried have been pitching like they have been here lately, that's an opportunity right there where you feel like the Braves might have the advantage on paper, at least in the pitching matchups. And then it just comes down to that offense. Can they get things clicking? And I think they have an opportunity against those two guys. And even Tyler Glasnow, as good as he has been, and traditionally he's not somebody that works deep into games. So if you can make him work, get him out after 5, maybe 5+ innings, get into that Dodgers bullpen, you got a good chance there.
Yeah, battle of the bullpens. The Braves are lined up just about as well as anybody. Again, doesn't mean they're going to win them all, but they're going to keep the game close and manageable for the most part. Looking at Charlie Morton, who does get the ball in the opener here, last 2 starts have been extremely good for him. 6 innings of 2-run ball in a win over the Texas Rangers back on the 20th of April. 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. Last time out, though, as good as I think he had looked all year against Cleveland. 7 innings of shutout ball, 4 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Did hit a batter as well, but for the most part, all of that extra traffic that was out there on the base paths in a couple of starts for him, in particular the 5-walk affair that he had against the New York Mets back on April the 8th. None of that has been going on for Charlie, and I don't know if I need to say it, but I will anyway, since we're on the spoken medium here. Charlie Morton doesn't need to issue free passes because the Dodgers are good enough. They don't need any help getting their run scoring going.
Yeah, it's always the key there with Charlie Morton is, can he keep the walks under control? He's somebody that's going to give them up, but, can he limit the damage when he does? Can he limit it to 2 walks over 6 innings? I will certainly take that with Charlie Morton, especially as able to keep the ball in the yard. But you're right, his last start out, I thought that was the best we've seen him all year. It was against the Cleveland team, 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk. nowhere in the 6 strikeouts, as you mentioned. But it's a different version of Charlie Morton, and I'm trying to adjust kind of my mind frame to what we're seeing this year. 28 strikeouts in 30 innings. We are not used to seeing Charlie Morton with less than a strikeout an inning. He has always been a big strikeout pitcher, but just a 1.13 whip. And that's because he's only given up 23 hits in 30 innings this year. He's somebody that is throwing that curveball in the zone more. He seems to be seeking more weak contact and be pitching to contact a little bit more. And he got the results in that last outing against the Guardians. Now, against the Dodgers, who make a lot of hard contact, I don't know if that's going to be a great recipe for him, but it seems to be that we're looking at a little bit different version of Charlie Morton, who's maybe pitching a little bit more to get weak contact and not always going for the big strikeout numbers like we're used to seeing.
It'll be interesting to see how that does match up against the Dodgers lineup when he takes them out against Gavin Stone on Friday night. A 10-10 first pitch from Dodger Stadium. The right-hander Charlie Morton on the mound against Gavin Stone in the first of 3 as the Braves and Dodgers get their first look at one another here in the month of May, early on in the year. And that's going to bring us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. As always, we appreciate you riding along with us. Make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta right here on YouTube. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button and leave us a comment and share the show with a friend. We'd appreciate that. And make sure you subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, a frustrating series for the Braves in a number of different ways in Seattle, but they do salvage the finale by a 5-2 score on Wednesday. We'll be back at you this weekend as the Braves and Dodgers match up. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We'll catch you next time. And until then, so long, everyone.